Well, we're just passing 8 minutes past the hour now, and with Ron Paul leading in a new Iowa poll, the presidential candidate is now facing renewed questions about racially inflammatory writings. These writings were published during the 1980s and 90s. Now, they appeared in newsletters bearing Paul's name, but they rarely carried a byline. The liberal New Republic covered this story some 3 years ago. More recently, that same reporter, writing for the conservative Weekly Standard, fleshed out even more details. Also, other news organizations from the New York Times to CNN have come up on new details as well. And what we have all now uncovered are items like this from a 1992 newsletter shortly after the L.A. riots, and this one titled Special Issue on Racial Terrorism. One line reads, "Order was only restored in L.A. when it came time for the blacks to pick up their welfare checks," end quote. In fact, order was, as you know, restored when the National Guard moved in. And also 2 years earlier, before that, in another Ron Paul publication, an article criticized President Reagan for signing legislation approving the creation of the federal Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. And this line read, quote, "We can thank him for our annual Hate Whitey Day," end quote. Then in 1996, when Paul was running for Congress, Democrats dug up other passages from his newsletters that he did not deny at the time writing. Talking about crime in Washington, again, I quote, "Given the inefficiencies of what D.C. laughingly calls the criminal justice system, I think we can safely assume that 95% of black males in that city are semi-criminal or entirely criminal," end quote. Ron Paul defended himself yesterday, talking to our Gloria Borger. Listen.
So you read them, but you didn't do anything about it at the time.
I never read that stuff. I've never read it. I was probably aware of it 10 years after it was written. And it's been going on 20 years that people have pestered me about this, and CNN does it every single time. So
well,
when are you going to wear yourself out?
I mean, when you say it's no, but you know, is it legitimate? I mean, is it a legitimate question to ask that something went out under your name?
And when you get the answer, it's legitimate that you sort of take the answers I give. You know what the answer is? I didn't write them. I didn't read them at the time, and I disavow them. That is the answer.
But you made money off of it.
If you know I made money on it, you know more about my finances than I do.
Do you know that you didn't? I mean,
I don't even know what you're talking about. I mean, you know, if it was published for 10 years, so if that was 1% of all the newsletter, I made money off, you know, talking about gold stocks. I think you're really confused on that.
Okay. Well, it's just a question. I mean, it's legitimate. It's legitimate. These things are pretty incendiary, you know.
Because of people like you.
No. Come on. Some of the stuff was very incendiary, and, you know, saying that in 1993 the Israelis were responsible for the bombing of the World Trade Center, that kind of stuff. Okay. So,
goodbye.
Now, Ron Paul, again, several years ago, did not deny some of the writings. Again, didn't appear with a byline necessarily, but today he is saying he did not write any of that stuff, even though his spokesman said he did take some moral responsibility for those being published in a newsletter that had his name.